me inside your head now.
How much time was left?
You don't want to know.
Cairo, this is an Emberclad. The carrier shield is down. I'm in position and ready for immediate assault.
Negative, Commander. Not against a ship that size. Not on your own.
Sir, permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
As we count down the days to Halo Infinite's launch, our full recap of the Halo series continues. Last time we talked about Combat Evolved and the Master Chief and Cortana's first mission together, which ended with the destruction of the Halo Ring, Installation 4 that the game was set on. Here we'll be talking about Halo 2, and it's a much more ambitious and large-scale story. Right off the bat, Halo 2 does the thing that you'd expect a sequel to a massive new game would do. It expands its scope vastly, with the ambition of telling a much grander story than the laser-sharp focus of Halo Combat Evolved's narrative. The way Halo 2 chooses to do that is by focusing quite a bit on the Covenant themselves. Shown as one-dimensional villains in the first game, in Halo 2 they take on a more layered and complex role, as the story dives deep into their social order, their goals and motivations, the conflicts and politics between the many races that make up the Collective, and more. Halo 2 kicks off with a scene set on High Charity, a massive Covenant flagship that also serves as the alien empire's mobile capital city. The Covenant Sangheili, or Elite as humans call them, soldier who was placed in charge of Installation 4's protection is on trial aboard High Charity, who tries arguing that the presence of the Flood on the ring complicated things in a manner he couldn't have foreseen. However, the Covenant High Council, composed of 3 hierarchs who collectively lead all of the Covenant, known as Truth, Mercy, and Regret, deem him guilty of failing to protect the ring. The Elite is stripped of his rank, publicly branded and humiliated, and handed off for torture to Tartarus, a Eurohane or Brute chieftain and one of the Covenant's highest-ranking military officials. This Elite, of course, goes on to step into a much more central role not long afterward, essentially sharing the spotlight with Master Chief as one of the game's 2 primary protagonists. For now, though, let's turn our attention back to the Chief himself, who alongside Cortana has just finished a speedy journey to Earth, as the 2 rush to the planet to warn them of an impending Covenant invasion. Aboard an orbital defense platform aboard Cairo, Master Chief and Sergeant Avery Johnson receive medals and commendation for their heroics on Installation 4, while Commander Miranda Keyes also receives a medal on behalf of her father, Captain Jacob Keyes, who of course did not survive the events of Halo Combat Evolved. The ceremony, however, is cut short when Cortana informs them that a fleet of Covenant ships has arrived and launched its attack on Earth. Covenant soldiers aboard the orbital defense platform, and Master Chief, alongside other soldiers, mounts a defense, driving them back. Other orbital defense stations don't fare as well, though, and the Covenant successfully breach Earth's defenses, as a fleet led by Regret lands in the city of New Mombasa. At the same time, a Covenant bomb is discovered aboard the Cairo orbital defense platform. After literally throwing the bomb out of the airlock through empty space and back at the Covenant to deal a massive blow to their fleet, Master Chief and Cortana find their way back with Miranda Keyes and Avery Johnson. Together, they head for New Mombasa to fight against the Regret's Covenant forces and protect the city. Immediately upon landing, they are met by significant Covenant resistance, but Master Chief is successful in mounting a successful assault. With his help, UNSC defenses drive the Covenant back and ultimately even destroy a Scarab, terrorizing the entire city. The Covenant suffer a heavy defeat, clearly having underestimated Earth's defenses, and Regret flees from the scene. His ship makes a hasty slipspace jump, which causes widespread destruction, completely devastating the city of New Mombasa, though that is a thread we'll follow in greater detail when we talk about Halo 3 ODST. For now, what's important is that Regret flees from Earth through slipspace, and the Chief, Cortana, Miranda, and Johnson follow. Here, however, Halo 2 turns its attention back to the disgraced Elite soldier it kicked things off with. Only, as it turns out, he promptly gets a chance at redemption. Or, well, perceived redemption in any case. Unlike Regret, the Covenant hierarchs Truth and Mercy are still aboard High Charity, and they offer the disgraced Elite a chance. He will be spared execution and given a chance at redemption if he takes on the mantle of the Arbiter. The Arbiter is the highest rank that can be given to an Elite, but is given in times of great crisis. The Arbiter is expected to enforce the will of the High Council, and more often than not, whoever occupies that title generally dies with it. The Elite knows that, of course, but accepts the title anyway, becoming the Arbiter, which is what we'll be calling him going forward. His first mission as Arbiter takes him to the planet of Threshold, tracking a band of rebellious Covenant forces disillusioned by the High Council following the destruction of Installation 4. The Arbiter and the Covenant soldiers with him successfully crush the rebel group, but when the Arbiter comes face to face with their leader, he receives some unexpected information. The rebel leader tells the Arbiter that Truth, Mercy, and Regret have been lying about the Great Journey, which is the name given to an event of great importance in the Covenant faith, and is achieved by activating the Halo rings. During this conversation, none other than 343 Guilty Spark also appears, who, as it turns out, survived the destruction of his installation and found his way to this planet, where he's been in the Rebel Covenant group's company. In fact, it is because of what Guilty Spark told them about the true nature of the Halo array that they grew disillusioned with the High Council. Before the Arbiter can learn more, though, the rebel leader tries to attack him, resulting in his own death. The brute chieftain Tartarus arrives at this point, extracting the Arbiter and 343 Guilty Spark and takes them back to High Charity. Things with Master Chief 2 begin to get even more interesting around this point. In pursuit of Regret, UNSC frigate in amber clad exits slipspace and finds itself in close proximity to yet another Halo ring, Installation 5. This time, however, armed with the knowledge of everything that happened on Installation 4, they quickly jump to action. Knowing that Regret plans to activate the Halo ring for the sake of the so-called Great Journey, and knowing how cataclysmic that could be, Miranda Keyes sends Master Chief and Cortana along with a bunch of ODSTs down to the ring to find and kill Regret. Meanwhile, Keyes herself and Johnson head down to Installation 5's library to find the Activation Index, hoping to get to it before the Covenant can find it and use it to activate the ring. Master Chief fights his way through Covenant defenses and reaches Regret's location. Around the same time, however, responding to Regret's distress call, High Charity arrives at Installation 5 with the Covenant fleet in tow. Master Chief kills Regret, but High Charity begins bombing the area in an attempt to eliminate him. The Chief narrowly escapes, jumping into the lake, but is rendered unconscious by the force of the explosions. As he sinks deeper into the lake, a giant tentacle grabs him and pulls him into the darkness. Back on High Charity, the death of Regret has caused some unexpected turmoil. The remaining hierarchs have placed the blame of his death on the elites, who have traditionally served as the honor guard for the High Council. In light of Regret's death, though, they're stripped of their ranks, and brutes, led by Tartarus, are instead brought into position. Tensions between elites and brutes have always been high, but this event makes things even pricklier. That said, the Covenant also have more pressing matters on their hands. From 343 Guilty Spark, Truth and Mercy learn about the process of how to activate a Halo ring, and then task the Arbiter with heading down to the ring to recover the Activation Index, which they refer to as the Sacred Icon. The Arbiter finds heavy resistance on the ring, primarily from the Flood, which is broken out and is wreaking havoc on Installation 5 as well, just as it did in Installation 4. Meanwhile, Sentinels have also been activated, and also serve as obstacles for the Arbiter. He successfully makes his way to the library, though, where he finds that Keyes and Johnson got to the Index a few seconds before he did. The Arbiter attacks the pair in an attempt to take the Index from them, but in the middle of their fight, Tartarus arrives with a whole squad of brutes in tow. He takes the Index for himself, captures Keyes and Johnson, and finally reveals to Arbiter the treachery of the Hierarchs, who ordered him to kill the Arbiter and oust the elites from the Covenant's ranks. He overpowers the Arbiter, knocking him down a shaft in the Index chamber into unknown depths. He is grabbed in those unknown depths with a giant tentacle and brought to a place where he sees, also grabbed by a tentacle, the Master Chief. Their paths finally converging, the two find themselves in the presence of an ancient, sentient, massive creature known as the Gravemind, which acts as the controlling intelligence of the Flood. Also present is 2401 Penitent Tangent, the monitor of Installation 5, now corrupted by the Flood. The Gravemind and Penitent Tangent reveal to the Arbiter the true nature of the Halo rings, causing him to question the Great Journey that the Hierarchs value so much. The Arbiter, Master Chief, and the Gravemind are, of course, all enemies of each other, and under ordinary circumstances this would quickly end in a firefight. Here, however, they all find themselves facing a common enemy. With the Activation Index, Truth and Mercy will be able to activate the Halo ring, which will obliterate all sentient life in the galaxy, and neither of them wants that. The Arbiter, in fact, has plenty of other reasons to fight as well, what with the elites having been betrayed by the brutes in the High Council and being murdered in scores. And so, the Gravemind teleports the Arbiter and Master Chief to different locations. Master Chief finds himself on High Charity, where he fights his way through scores of Covenant soldiers just as their military command has passed over to the Brutes. Upon the Chief's arrival, Truth and Mercy flee to a nearby Forerunner dreadnought. As chaos erupts all throughout High Charity, with the Brutes and the Elites openly taking each other on in combat, Master Chief gives chase to the Hierarchs. To make things even more chaotic though, the Flood, controlled by the Gravemind, crashes into High Charity, using the UNSC frigate in amber clad. Cortana realizes that the Gravemind used them merely as distractions, and as the Flood ravages the mobile city, Master Chief witnesses Mercy being assimilated by the parasitic aliens. As he's about to die, he tells the Chief that Truth, the last remaining Hierarch, is headed to Earth to finish what the Covenant started, and destroy Earth and by extension, all of humanity. Cortana urges Master Chief to board the Forerunner dreadnought and chase Truth back to Earth. But knowing that the Index still hasn't been retrieved and that the Halo ring may very well be activated, he is hesitant to do so. Cortana, however, comes up with a plan. She tells him that if the Covenant do activate Installation 5, she will detonate the engines of In Amber Clad, which in turn will destroy the ring itself, similar to what happened to the Pillar of Autumn in Installation 4. To be able to do so, however, Cortana will have to stay behind on High Charity. With time running out, Master Chief promises Cortana that he will be back for her and boards the dreadnought as he flees. And one final time, we turn our attention back to the Arbiter, who is teleported by the Gravemind to the installation's control room. There is an uneasy alliance of elite and human forces led by the Arbiter and Sergeant Johnson, respectively, successfully fighting Covenant forces to get into the control room. The Arbiter confronts Tartarus and tells him about the true nature of the Halo array. 343 Guilty Spark, also present there, tells the Brute the full truth as well, but completely blinded by faith, he refuses to listen to either of them. He forces Miranda Keyes to use the Index to activate the ring, at which point the Arbiter attacks him. A tough fight ensues, but the Arbiter succeeds in killing Tartarus. Upon his death, Keyes removes the Index just in time to stop the ring from firing. Even so, it seems ominous things have still been set into motion. Guilty Spark tells them that the activation and deactivation of the ring triggered a failsafe in the ancient system built by the Forerunners, which means Installation 5 has sent out a signal to all of the other rings in the Halo array, barring the destroyed Installation 4, of course. The entire array is primed, and Guilty Spark informs them that they can all be remotely activated from another Forerunner installation known as the Ark. At the same time, Truth's Dreadnought and his Covenant forces arrive at Earth, unaware that Master Chief has followed them back from the Halo ring, and he's ready and itching to finish the fight. In a post-credits scene, we see Cortana on High Charity, which has now been completely overtaken and assimilated by the Gravemind. In Halo 2's final scene, the Gravemind tells Cortana that he has several questions he wants to ask her, and she agrees to answer. And that's it for Halo 2. When we come back, we'll take a short break from Master Chief and Cortana's story and focus instead on the fallout of New Mombas's destruction and the events of Halo 3 ODST. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.